Have you ever caught yourself replaying a conversation from a few days ago, analyzing every word and gesture, or imagining every possible scenario of something that hasn't even happened yet? If so, know that you're not alone. This mental pattern has a name: overthinking. Today, we'll explore what psychology says about it, the most common signs, and most importantly, how to deal with this mental habit that can become exhausting. According to psychology, being an overthinker is not an official label, but rather a cognitive and emotional pattern. It can underline certain disorders like anxiety and depression, or simply indicate personality traits that are more sensitive and highly attentive to the environment. People who overthink often feel the need to anticipate the future, control situations, and interpret every detail of others' behavior, as if their minds were hyperactive radars. From a psychological perspective, overthinkers tend to display 5 main characteristics. 1. High level of self-observation. Overthinkers usually have an intense awareness of their thoughts and emotions. They notice every reaction, every detail, every gesture they make. At first glance, this might seem positive. After all, self-knowledge is important. But when taken to the extreme, it turns into hyper self-criticism, becoming an internal inspector constantly evaluating everything you do. For example, imagine someone compliments your work. A typical person would thank them, feel proud, and move on. An overthinker, however, might think, "Yeah, but I messed up that one detail," or "It wasn't that good." This pattern isn't about being picky, it's often a reflection of past experiences. Growing up in critical or unstable environments can teach a person to constantly monitor themselves to avoid punishment or disapproval. Psychologically, this extreme self-attention is common among people with social anxiety and perfectionism, who often feel they're never good enough. 2. Tendency to ruminate. Ruminating means mentally repeating the same thoughts over and over without moving towards solutions or change. For overthinkers, this is almost automatic. The brain believes that by repeating, it will find an answer. In reality, it only increases distress. For example, you had an argument with someone. Days later, you're still replaying every phrase, every gesture, imagining what you could have said differently. This process drains emotional energy, creates anxiety, and makes decision-making harder. It's like the mind is trapped in an endless loop, reliving the past without learning anything new. Psychology shows that rumination is strongly linked to anxiety and depression. The more a person thinks, the more negative emotions are reinforced, which can lead to mental fatigue, insomnia, and a sense of incapability. 3. Need for control. Another prominent trait of overthinkers is the need to control everything. They try to predict every possible scenario to avoid being caught off guard. This often stems from past experiences in unpredictable or unstable environments, where learning to prepare for everything was a survival strategy. Practical example: before an important conversation, you mentally rehearse all possible responses and how to react to each one. Every silence or delayed reply is immediately analyzed and reinterpreted, increasing anxiety. Psychologically, this relates to intolerance of uncertainty, a common feature in anxiety disorders. The person believes that by anticipating all the problems, they can protect themselves. But in reality, it only increases mental and emotional strain. 4. Cognitive biases. Overthinkers are also strongly influenced by cognitive biases, which are distortions in how reality is interpreted. 2 of the most common are catastrophizing, always imagining the worst-case scenario, and mind reading, assuming you know what others are thinking, usually something negative. For example, if someone takes a long time to reply to a message, the person immediately thinks they're mad at me, or they must think I'm annoying. This type of interpretation can create unnecessary suffering because reality could be completely different. It might just be busy. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, works precisely on this, helping people identify these patterns and replace them with more realistic and balanced thoughts. 5. History of insecurity or instability. Many overthinkers come from unstable or unpredictable environments during childhood. This could be a home with frequent arguments, constant changes, or excessive criticism. In these situations, the child learns to read signals constantly, trying to protect themselves from potential problems. In adulthood, this habit turns into overanalysis and extreme attention to detail, always anticipating conflicts or issues. For example, growing up in a home where arguments could start out of nowhere can make a person as an adult interpret tones of voice or facial expressions as warning signs, even when there's no reason to worry. Psychology explains this through attachment theory and the concept of emotional hypervigilance. People who experience early insecurity learn to keep their minds on constant alert. Impacts of overthinking on life. Excessive thinking affects energy, emotional health, and relationships. It makes decision-making harder, disrupts sleep, and increases stress. In personal relationships, it turns simple situations into complex problems because the mind creates stories and interpretations that aren't necessarily true. Additionally, overthinkers might feel constant guilt, fear of making mistakes, and a sense of incapability, even when they are competent or loved. The repetitive thought pattern reinforces feelings of insecurity, isolation, and low self-esteem. How to deal with overthinking? The good news is there are practical strategies to reduce excessive thinking. Ask yourself, do I have control over this right now? If the answer is no, redirect your energy to something that can actually be done. Mindfulness, taking time to focus on the present, helps break the rumination cycle. Thought journaling, writing down your feelings and thoughts, unloads emotional pressure and brings clarity. Set worry limits. Choose a specific time to reflect on problems, and outside of it, engage in activities that divert attention. Restructure cognitive biases. Through therapy or conscious self-observation, learn to identify automatic interpretations and replace them with more realistic thoughts. Remember, thinking is important, but overthinking can steal your peace. Your mind should be a place to visit, not to live in. Recognizing the signs is the first step to regaining control and living more lightly and consciously.
If you found this video helpful or if it made you reflect, don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you enjoy content like this, consider subscribing and turning on the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. Lastly, if you know someone who might benefit from hearing this, share it with them. You never know how much of a difference it could make. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.